Hi, and welcome to Decoding AQ, helping you to learn the tools, mindsets, and actions to thrive in an ever-changing world. Hi, and welcome to the next episode of Decoding AQ. I have another special guest with me here today. I have Magdalena Mook, who is the CEO at ICF, and that's the International Coaching Federation. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Glad to be here.
And it's interesting, isn't it? The phases that life goes through, and at what point might we have a coach? And, as we were chatting just in the initial piece, my own personal coach took me on journeys to different countries because I wanted to find the best coach. If you're an entrepreneur, well, who's the person who coaches the best entrepreneurs? Find them. And it evolves who we are and what our potential is. What got you into coaching in the first place, Magdalena?
Yeah, in the first place, it was in fact the job opportunity. I have been with ICF for almost 16 years, which is a little scary. But I wasn't hired for my coaching abilities, mind you. I was hired for my association management skills and international relations. I was familiar with coaching, but more on a theoretical level. And it was only 2005. So, but very soon after, I was afforded the ability to work with a professional coach. And it only came natural that very soon after I was trained as a coach, and I continue my training as a professional coach.
And
So there was a work-related opportunity to engage with coaching.
And your journey from, as you said, in government, in agriculture, and the ability to facilitate groups of people, decisions, strategic decisions, all of these complex things of international relations. I guess there's a lot of similarities in coaching. We're dealing with complex people and humans and then teams and organizations. And how does a international coaching federation differ from, say, potentially regional or individual ones? What are some of the unique aspects of having one that's so vast and so diverse across lots of different countries and things? What's the benefits of those things?
Yeah. So right now we have about 45,000 members in over 140 countries. It is possibly one of our greatest benefit of having an opportunity for anyone within the system to have a colleague and peer that you can just check how they are doing things. And yet there are some headaches. Language, as you can imagine, is immediately one, because coaching is quite an intimate service. So a lot of coaching is happening in the local language of the country or the territory that it's happening. The other one is, of course, culture. Coaching as it exists right now was predominantly developed more of an Anglo-Saxon tradition. And now we're having such a beautiful influences of other countries and other cultures. And that's enriching definitely the way we perceive coaching and the way the coaching is being delivered. And yet, if you try to be a global standard for the coaching profession, that creates some interesting conversations to be resolved for the good of the profession. And naturally, you can imagine the code of ethics is also something that we don't want it to be bland. We want it to be enforceable. And yet, how do we make sure that we're respectful of multiple cultures, multiple countries, laws, and regulations? So never a dull moment. That's probably what describes ICF. But again, richness of opportunity to see how coaching is being developed, evolves, and is being applied in different parts of the world is just phenomenal.
I guess that insight, an organization 25 years old, and you've been there, nearly 16 years, that evolution to understand what has worked, what's working today, and what will work tomorrow is a continual cycle that every organization goes through. And what are some of the challenges and some of the maybe stories of where there's been shifts and changing in the coaching, whether it's the policies or best practices or the ethics that you've seen over that
Mhm.
decade and a half of how
Mhm.
coaching has changed?
Yes, definitely many changes, I think, for the better.
Yep.
As it is a young profession and we're still evolving, we're still learning. We are learning from other disciplines that are supporting coaching, that being, instruction design, that being neuroscience, medicine, psychology, psychiatry. So this is quite rich. And yet, when I first started with ICF, such concepts as internal coaching was not very much talked about. And now we know a lot of organizations employ internal coaches. The term manager and leader using coaching skills, now the fastest growing part of the of the coaching continuum, that didn't exist. Things like supervision, things like group or team coaching, those simply did not exist. And they came to be because there was a defined need within the population of clients that needed to be responded to. So I think that this is a beauty of the agility of the coaching profession. You mentioned ethics. The code of ethics, our code of ethics is reviewed every 3 years. It's
Wow. Yeah.
religious, every
Yep.
3 years, because it is such an important document, not to coaches alone, but to the clients, what to expect, what to ask for, what not to agree to in the coaching relationship. So we really want to make sure that the code is very much up to date, because one of the I think most important things that any organization and association needs to look to is to be relevant.
Mm.
And that relevancy comes from being very attuned to what is the circumstance, so what are the circumstances in the marketplace.
So one of the key challenges then for the coaching industry or any industry is, as you say, to remain relevant
Mm.
and to be able to change and adapt, to let go of something as much as it is embrace something that's coming that's new. What do you see as the key opportunities for coaching in the future? What's coming down the line? What are the things that are being worked on that we might see trickle down across the coaching industry? What's, if I describe, a question of what's the future of coaching? How would you describe that in your view?
Um, a First statement is that the future of coaching is bright.
Yep.
And it is, because another phenomenon that we're observing is that coaching, starting maybe even a little bit remedial, quickly became more of a developmental, professional development or performance development tool. And originally also afforded maybe only to a top level individuals in organizations. Now our own research with Human Capital Institute points to the organizations that are becoming strong in their coaching culture. And one of the elements of the coaching culture, strong coaching culture, is that coaching is available to anybody and everybody within the organization. So that's one thing, that I think that the pie is getting bigger, right?
Mhm.
Because we have more and more people who are aware of coaching. That's another study with PricewaterhouseCoopers, that we know that the awareness of coaching is growing exponentially year to year to year. We're going to repeat that study this year, so I'm curious.
Yep.
And also, that allows for that different attitudes towards coaching. Is it onboarding? Is it career coaching? Is it life coaching? Is it something that is important for the entire team or the entire system? So from that perspective, I think that really there is a lot of need for coaching. Last year, COVID showed us that being relational as a leader, being empathetic, being resilient, but also vulnerable, these are the traits of leadership that we didn't hear before, right? And being self-aware. And we know that all these three elements of personal or professional persona can be very well helped by working with the coach.
Okay.
But you ask about the trends, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention technology and artificial intelligence, of course, because that's something being talked about a lot. Technology already is supporting coaching in a big way, and so is AI. My personal view, of course, is that AI will never replace coaching because of the empathy level and the ability to really read the changes in a person as they go through the relationship.
Yeah, I think it is one of those things with technology is, are we trying to replicate who we are or augment us to be better at what we do? And there's no doubt things that technology can do better at it than we can, certain things. And we should gladly, have a relationship with technology that allows us to perform better. And I think one of the opportunities that you mentioned there, which has been a historical challenge, is the accessibility of coaching, the accessibility of quality coaching, and something that has been almost a privilege of the execs and the high level to actually be able to access quality coaching at every level of the employee life cycle and every stage in the org chart. I think technology can play a big part to that to a certain extent. And likewise, as you said, coaching cultures inside organizations. So it's not necessarily just someone who wears a badge that says they're a coach, but is able to understand the coaching principles and how that might be able to aid and help. What are some of the dangers that you see around coaching, some of the sort of obstacles and friction points for really effective and good coaching?
So I will start with the fact that to be a good coach, one has to be good, well trained. That's the absolute must. As you know, coaching is not necessarily externally regulated profession, so people could call themselves coaches and not necessarily breaking any laws or rules. But I think that this is important, that the purchasers of coaching are educated enough about what to look for in a coach, and that being membership in a professional organization, credential, proof of education is supremely important in that. Second potential danger, I'll say, is I don't see it as much, but there was a period of time where coaching seemed to be a silver bullet for absolutely everything that was not going as well as it could be. And coaching can help in multiple facets, no question, but sometimes a good old-fashioned mentoring or good training, classroom training, may benefit the person and the organization in a better way. So the mixture of applications of learning techniques, including coaching, is very important. And the other one, I will go back to technology, because I think we share the opinion that technology can support coaches' work and can really just help get rid of some boring parts of the business and really focus on being with the client, being present with them, and being in that relationship. And at the same time, if taken maybe too far, there may be a recognition that AI type coaching would be enough. And I hoped, and this is also the responsibility of our organization, of course, to make sure that potential clients, existing and potential clients, understand the difference in the benefit of working with the human coach and being helped by algorithm behind the AI coach.
And it potentially could be a great on-ramp for that, in terms of people who weren't aware of maybe some of the benefits of coaching, to try it out, to then get some feedback and responses. And the danger, of course, is if it doesn't help them, that they're completely turned off. But let's live in the utopian world, not a dystopian one, in that it offers up this explosion of opportunity for the era of coaching where human coaches are. I really believe we're in the era of coaching. If we had an era before of management and structure, now coaching where we're in a more unpredictable and more uncertain world, coaching that asks great questions, that help support people through not a defined process or journey, but one in which is involving creativity and imagination. And those kind of things, I think, provide a great light for the future. In terms of how the Federation functions, and as you talked about these, huge challenges across cultural differences, across language differences, in terms of the Federation's mandate of how it exists, and it's got a number of different components, hasn't it? Sort of half a dozen different components as a non-profit organization. Just give us some headlines of some of those that are new or been around a while, and what do they do? Just to give us a walking tour around ICF, I think would be really helpful.
Sure, happy to do that. Little historian, right?
Yeah.
So back to the beginnings. The organization was started in 1995 in North America, but quite quickly gained some footing in Australia and Western Europe, especially the United Kingdom. So, and the organization from the very beginning, what a foresight by the founding fathers and mothers of the organization to be called international. They did not want it to be a local organization, and second, to create the organization not necessarily as a network for coaches at that point, very new, a very budding profession, but to promote the effectiveness and efficacy of coaching. And I think that we remain true to the very roots of the organization, especially lately when we created the 6, we call them family organizations that constitute the ICF. And the first and the foremost is, it always will be, is the family organization that represents professional coaches. Not everybody knows that to be an ICF member, one has to be already trained as a coach. That's the minimum requirement to be an ICF coach.
That's the bar.
Yep, that's the bar. And believe me, I did live through the time when we proposed that bar, and there were some very spirited conversations around that, partly from the perspective of, are we being inclusive of people who are interested in coaching? And we said, you know what, interested in coaching, we can fulfill their interest in other ways than being a member of a professional organization. But that's yet another sign of evolution of the organization. So professional coaches, we make sure that they are well trained, well prepared, that they get resources they need to run an effective and successful coaching business. Then the second longest existing part of the ICF is ICF Foundation, which was created to be more like a charitable arm of the ICF and offer primarily pro bono coaching in social progress organizations, so they can achieve greater social return on investment in their activities. Two other activities that we've been known for is the approval of coach training, and that's another family organization. So they make sure that the curricula for our coach training providers are adequate and, again, reflective of what's relevant in a coaching profession. And they almost hand over those people to the coach credentialing and standards family organization that is responsible for ICF credentials. And again, I think that it is important to know that ICF looks into two aspects of our credentials. One, of course, is the content. What is the skill set? What are our coaching competencies? But the other part is that we, in our processes, are following the highest global standards for credentialing, and that's ISO standard 17024, for organizations offering credentials to individuals. So these are very hand in hand but parallel steps. So we really do offer the gold standard in coaching credentials. And finally, 2 babies to their family. One is coaching in organizations, and our own research started indicating that organizations are adopting coaching cultures. They are embracing internal coaching programs. They are embracing training for leaders and managers using coaching skills. So we thought that as a global organization, we should have offering for them. So when they get on this journey, they do it in a way that supports them being successful in as quick of a time as possible. And finally, the Thought Leadership Institute, as we said, coaching is still evolving, and coaching touches upon leadership, right? Upon human development. So where are we going, and where do we want to go, or where we don't? This is equally important question, how far we stretch before we break, and maybe we give birth to something else, and yet make sure that what we call coaching is coaching.
Yeah, and it's that lovely poetic dance, isn't it, between exploring new and exploiting what exists, you know, in terms of propositions or thought processes. But overall, what I get a sense of is being able to give confidence to something that is challenging to understand, to discern, and unregulated. You know, so bringing that level of confidence that whether you are a coach or a buyer of coaching, you can come and gain those seals, those confidence, those areas of which you're de-risking the entity of that. But also, I think it's a wider, as you touched on at the end, in terms of a steering one of leadership of what's the vision. What, you know, if we can create a world in 5 years' time, in 10 years' time, what kind of world do we want coaching to play? You know, what kind of role in that world will it play? And I'd be fascinated to explore a little bit of your thoughts where we have all of these, you know, individuals, leaders, organizations dealing with everything from just surviving through to thriving within their life cycle of business. And some are going through such transformations and shifts and change that all they're trying to do is hang on to their seats of what they've got, let alone envisage what might be next. For ICF and the Federation and how you see coaching, paint me a picture of sort of 3 years, 5 years time. What would be a amazing environment for coaching to be in, and what role does ICF have in that?
Well, we can go straight to the vision of the organization, which says that coaching is becoming an integral part of a thriving society, and ICF coaches are representing the highest quality in the profession. This second part is, of course, self-explanatory. The first, I think, has a beautiful invitation to define 2 terms: one, integral part, and a second, thriving society. So in many of our works, we are talking about, you mentioned that earlier, how coaching can be accessible to more people, right? How coaching can be introduced to populations that right now either don't know about it, or don't think it's for them, or don't think they can afford it. And all 3 statements may not be correct. And then the thriving society is, I think it's so powerful, because it's up to you to define what's thriving, right? And thriving in one, especially for us being so internationally present, thriving for one population may be having access to drinking water, and for other is to, well, go to Mars. Why not? We are having some people doing that right now. So, and I think ICF's major role is twofold, and I think we always had a bit of that dual responsibility. And I say responsibility cautiously, but also on purpose. One is to make sure that coaches are really trained and prepared to offer this service to their clients, so that high standard of coaching competencies and ethics is absolutely imperative. And the other one is that a general education of the population of what is return on investment, or we have another index, which is return on expectation. How coaching can help, how coaching can be useful. And again, don't use it as a silver bullet, but be aware that this modality exists. And it could be very helpful or useful at any different stage of individual, personal, professional path, but also for organizations, larger systems, regions, countries. Okay, here we go, the planet.
Yeah.
And last thing I say is that in the work of the foundation and also Thought Leadership Institute, we decided to follow the framework of the United Nations 2030 Sustainable Development Goals. So that in a way shows us that picture of 17 areas where humanity is badly in need of help, and we do believe coaching can.
It's funny you bring that up because it makes me smile. My background, Magdalena, was in brand and marketing. And I had the privilege of leading the project for the rebranding and repositioning for the United Nations volunteers globally. And it was just prior to the Sustainable Development Goals being launched. And I addressed the whole UN system on the brand strategy of the global goals when they were just launched. And in fact, my first book was all about how we take exponential technologies and deploy them to the SDGs, to the global goals, this to-do list for the planet. So I think whatever we have, whatever we're passionate about or our purpose, pointing it in a direction that's additive, so whether it's coaching, whether it's technology, whatever the thing is it's important, as you said, to find this area of where is it in, whether it's ethics, whether it's the sustainable development goals, that we are thriving, that is defined by the context of an individual, of a country, access to drinking water or going to Mars. I loved that kind of thought. And the other part for me that resonated when you were talking there was about this, even what is coaching, and you invited this opportunity of an integral part. And that opens up this huge opportunity for this operating system to have counseling, to have learning, to have training, to have all of these elements that allow us to move forward, that allow us to have a better future than past. And I think that's very, as you said, intentional about the responsibility, that both with caution but intent in the time, that by it being integral is that it's at the table. It's at the strategic table of change, of coaching. It's not to fix something afterwards or that happens in a silo in a room. It's at the grown-ups table. And I think now is the era where coaching is at the grown-ups table of every organization. And I think the challenge, and we've hit on it a few times, is to make it accessible and the reach. There's in sports, coaching, it's the elite that get coached, and then you have somebody volunteering to coach the under 10s football team or whatever it may be. Is there's well-intended people trying to better the coach, the company, the areas that they're working with. And I think with federations and organizations, they can just rise all boats in the harbor with that tide of activity. So I'm so grateful that there are organizations like yours that exist and take their place in the world very seriously, because the world needs it. Humanity needs it, of those things. In terms of the types of things that you've seen across the plethora of types of skills of leadership, all of the different trends from how to have great conversations to make strategic decisions, what are you seeing at the moment in terms of what people are wanting to be coached in and what coaches are wanting to be trained in? What are some of the themes that are happening at the moment as the most important skills to work on?
I think that the impact of the COVID pandemic is going to be felt for a little while. And I don't necessarily think that perhaps the list of things people want to be coached on would be completely changed or has been completely changed, but maybe the pace accelerated a little bit. So we saw a lot of resilience requests. How to be more resilient, how to be a leader when your mind is frankly with your sick parent or whatever that might be. So how to be present in a way that you can offer leadership traits to people who maybe never been through circumstance like that. Look, I look at my own staff, and our staff is young and vibrant, and I realized that many of them never in their life went through large, mind you, universal and global, but even more localized difficulty like we did with COVID. They don't even remember 9/11, which probably is last in the States, that would mark such a circumstance. So it was like, how are they supposed to be resilient?
Yeah, the muscle
this is
was
their
dormant.
First, right?
Yeah.
It's their first experience. So resilience, definitely, presence, definitely, something more practical showing up would be how do I motivate virtual teams, remote teams? So this new way of work is popping up quite a bit. But also, not surprisingly, again, burnout. And that has several facets. How do I know burnout? How do I deal with burnout? Or how do I prevent burnout in my staff? So these are things that are definitely popping up. What we see on a coach's side, training, I think the resilience is still showing up there, but also more so into team coaching, group coaching. This is even more important now when the teams may not be physically together for their work. So we see quite a bit of that requests. Late last year, ICF issued the core competencies, additional core competencies for team coaching to help out in this situation as well. And this is, I hereby declare the bias, but I think the coaches need to take care of themselves. This is not a new theme necessarily, but I think that, again, the pandemic really, really showed it, that coaches are very good at asking people to take care of themselves and not very good at doing it themselves.
It is a human downfall, isn't it? I think, was it Gödel's law that it talks about you can't see the label of your own jam jar when you're inside the jam jar. Exactly. And it's very easy to observe someone else's outside of their jam jar, but not your own, whether, the cobbler's shoes are always bad, all of these same things. Is that when we are a particular thing, we don't apply that same thing, that same medicine to ourselves. And I'm delighted you brought that up, because it's so important. And it reminds me of the reality on airlines when the oxygen masks are deployed. We're told to put it on ourselves first before the children. So if we're a coach and we aren't putting the oxygen mask on ourselves first, how can we serve? How can we serve with presence? How can we serve with our best selves for who we're wanting to help or shift and move? And I think making the space and time for that is it's a selfless, not a selfish act.
Exactly. In fact, it's in service of a client. It's in service, I would say. Yeah.
It's absolutely in service. And I think for many, that's an adaptation of a mindset and a mindset shift that I'm last. I have to put others first.
Yes.
To put others first, you have to put yourself first to be able to do that well, rather than 10% of you is all that's left.
Indeed.
So I'm glad you brought that back up, because it resonates with me, of this challenge of when in our roles as CEOs, what is the vision? How do we curate, multiple collaborations and partnerships to deliver on that vision and give people the environment that fosters creativity, that fosters wellness? And this shift between just activities to it becoming part of the operating system.
Yeah.
And so that integral part that coaching can play is it becomes part of the operating system, not to be called in when there's a big opportunity or a big challenge or something's gone wrong, but it becomes part of the breathing of work, of the future of work. And for me, that's the sort of vision that I see, is that coaching becomes part of the great breathing of organizations, of those things.
In fact, yeah, definitely, and that is another, as we said, the word is stretchable. For some, integral part means everybody's got an access.
Yeah.
Right. For others, it may mean everybody who wants to be a coach can. Others would say everybody is adopting coaching style of whatever they do. So that there, or as you just suggested, that coach is available as a part of the general canvas of person's activity, and not only and not only just deployed, if you will, when need be. Yeah. So again, I think it's a quite nice wording of something that might mean different things to different people.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of it, isn't it, of those things. And you've just gone through a rebranding at ICF and that opportunity to be very intentional and relevant. And that's a continual thing to reevaluate and to have the bravery and courage to say no to things and say yes to other things. I'd like to finish up, because we're coming close to the end point here, Magdalena, in terms of, you must have an absolute immense list of things, of projects, of to-do, of initiatives, of all of these pieces. And one of the challenges is prioritization within any organization of what are the most valuable, what the things that are going to get you closest to the outcomes that you're wanting. And of course, we're now got multiple stakeholders within any organization of these things.
Yeah.
In a year's time, if we're having a conversation, what would delight you with joy and happiness of something that was achieved by ICF in the next 12 months, that you'd go, that's something we set out to do and we're there, and that was our biggest priority of either project or shift? What would that thing be?
I would you dangerously did not give me a limit, so I'll go with 3.
Okay.
One is being super optimistic, 5 years, but say 10 years. In 10 years' time, I want anybody who thinks coaching thinks ICF. And that, of course, translates into because of highest quality, because of credibility, because. So coaching, ICF. The other one is you mentioned, you used the term, I was smiling to myself, that this is a big kids table now. Yes, I want coaching to be actually a solution for even larger
political
initiatives.
Government,
yes,
right at
exactly.
the top of how
because
society
it
functions.
Because it can, and because it has already, except it's not amplified maybe in such a way. And quite frankly, and that would be more me talking, is if we were to pick one of the 17 sustainable goals, and we created a curated application of coaching to show sustained progress, that I think I would be very happy to see and to have that case study, if you will, of coaching truly being part of a solution of systemic issues, because more things than not are systemic that we're facing. And with the sustainable development goals, I'm a systemically trained coach, so I can't help myself. But nothing operates in a vacuum. So if ICF could spearhead a way of bringing coaching to bring huge impacts because of addressing some of this larger systemic societal issues, I would be very happy for the organization and for the profession.
I think that's lovely in the way that you've mapped those things out from this situation of awareness that coaching equals ICF. Great. I mean, it's I don't know if you have the same, but there was a vacuum cleaner brand called Hoover. And now people for many years have said, oh, are you doing the hoovering? No, it's the vacuum cleaning, not hoovering.
Exactly.
Hoovering was the best. So, you ICF in coaching, get that. I like that piece. The next of going up the food chain as well as going down. So going up to, government and parliament and the way in which our society structures and leverage coaching as a lever for, change, for better outcomes, those things. And the final piece is having a contribution to moving the needle on one of the SDGs, on the global goals. And that couldn't resonate with me more, Magdalena, my own personal ambition of moving the needle on those goals. And it's certainly a massive purpose of my life to move those needles. And that whilst it's big and you have big aspirations, you can start small. And that, I think, is something everybody can take forward, is deciding how they choose to share their gift, their gift of time, of presence, and of care. And I look forward to watching and maybe, influencing and collaborating with ICF of how we can both co-elevate to achieve some of those goals and impacts would be wonderful.
Takes a village.
It certainly does. It certainly does. So to close out, where's the best place if people hadn't heard of ICF, or they have, but they've never really acted on it? What's the best first on-ramp to connect with the organization? Where should they go? How should they connect in with ICF?
I would suggest as a first step to go to our website, coachingfederation.org. And then we mentioned the language issue. On our website, there is a list of our chapters. Many chapters have their own websites in their local languages. So should the language be a barrier, that could be a great place to check. But yeah, check us out, check the 6 family organizations, see some of the larger initiatives that we're undertaking on behalf of the coaching profession. And then there are 85 of us waiting for your call if you have any specific questions about ICF.
Thanks, Magdalena. You've been so generous with your time and just your stories and candor. I do this to learn and to meet great people doing great things. And I want to say thank you. And I look forward to our next conversation.
Thanks so much, Ross.
Do you have the level of adaptability to survive and thrive the rapid changes ahead? Has your resilience got more comeback than a yo-yo? Do you have the ability to unlearn in order to reskill, upskill and break through? Find out today and uncover your adaptability profile and score, your AQ. Visit AQai.io to gain your personalized report across 15 scientifically validated dimensions of adaptability. For a limited time, enter code PODCAST65 for a complimentary AQME assessment. AQai, transforming the way people, teams and organizations navigate change. Thank you for listening to this episode of Decoding AQ. Please make sure you subscribe on your favorite podcast directory, and we'd love to hear your feedback. Please do leave a review and be sure to tune in next time for more insights from our amazing guests.